The title of this presentation is Powerful, Proud, and Let's Be Real, It's Time. Visitor responses to a mounted museum exhibition centered on Black women's fashions in a predominantly white space. And Dr. Kelly Reddy-Best was my advisor on this research, and we also built this museum exhibition alongside our colleague, Dana Goodin. So in the spring of 2020, we mounted an exhibition in the Iowa State University Textiles and Clothing Museum that was titled Collegiate Fashion and Activism, Black Women's Styles on the College Campus, which was free and open to the public. We opened the exhibition on February 3rd, 2020, and unfortunately had to close on March 13th due to COVID. In the exhibition, we analyzed the ways that Black women college students attending PWIs in Iowa negotiate their Black and/or activist identity through their dress. We focused on a specific space and time, being PWIs from 2013 to 2019. And we focused on that time frame because the Black Lives Matter movement was founded in 2013. So we used counter storytelling, which is a tenet of critical race theory, to inform our exhibition research. And we had 15 Black women college students who participated in wardrobe interviews and then loaned these same garments to the museum for the exhibit, which was made up of 11 themes. We also included large-scale images of Black women participants and as well as a digital video of the interviews as a part of the exhibition. So in our current research, we analyzed the visitors' responses to our objects and narratives in the mounted exhibition. And findings from our research can be of significance to fashion museum professionals when considering diversity and social justice initiatives and the visitors' response to these actions, particularly for institutions in mostly white geographic areas with social justice as a part of their strategic plan, mission, and/or vision. So for example, Iowa State University has a strategic plan, and goal number 4 reads, continue to enhance and cultivate the ISU experience where faculty, staff, students, and visitors are safe and feel welcomed, supported, included, and valued by the university and each other. So as I was explaining, Iowa State University is one of these predominantly white institutions that have social justice initiatives. Therefore, building museum exhibitions that highlight marginalized identities is pretty essential, which I'll go more into later in the presentation. So this is a list of the questions that we wanted to answer via our museum survey that highlight how various visitors responded to our exhibit. These questions include, what did our museum visitors think or feel about our fashion exhibition focused on Black women's styles here in the US and the related historical narrative? How did the people of color, specifically Black women who visited the exhibition, respond to it? And what was it like to see a reflection of one's reflections and styles in the museum narrative as a Black woman, which is a story that is often untold? So past scholars have highlighted the significance of museum exhibitions as important spaces where people construct and negotiate identities. Individuals who continually see themselves represented in museum exhibitions can further understand or examine parts of their identity by engaging with the objects on display. Most importantly, when historically marginalized communities do see themselves represented in museum exhibitions, they can experience a positive reaction and an improved sense of self. As a museum institution, effectively understanding your visitors' responses and experiences can improve future visits. And this information can be used to provoke resistance where it challenges prefigured beliefs and assumptions, particularly for curators or directors committed to previous ways of operating. Curators of 21st century museum exhibitions are often expected to create educational spaces where culturally diverse groups are represented, welcomed, and given a voice. To achieve the purpose of our study, we conducted an online survey of museum visitors using Qualtrics. As museum visitors entered the gallery, a QR code was available to scan that took potential participants to the 14-question survey. To be eligible for participation, individuals had to be 18 years or older. We collected demographic data, including race and ethnicity, gender, age, occupation, and place of residence. Then we asked 8 questions about the exhibition, including topics on the representation of women of color, their reactions to the exhibition, if they would like to see more representation of women of color, and what they liked or wished were different about the exhibition. Additionally, we asked if the person identified as Black or African American woman, and if they said yes, we asked how or if they related to each of the themes in the exhibition. At the end of the survey, we asked the participants if we could publish their responses in the online catalog. And of the 90 people who completed the survey in its entirety, 77 said yes. To analyze the survey data, we reported on descriptive statistics for demographic data, and then we used thematic analysis for the open-ended questions to identify themes and sub-themes related to our purpose. Most of the responses were from white museum visitors. However, there were also numerous people of color that completed the survey, including 4 Black women. The average age was 23, and the survey was completed mostly by women, followed by men, 1 trans person, and 2 Two-Spirit people. All of the themes identified in the data centered on the idea that diversity is important and should be considered in museum spaces. We identified that participants expressed a desire to see more Black women in fashion museums. For example, one participant shared, "I have gone to so many museums. You always see white men and women, but you rarely see African American women represented, let alone in such a positive light, at least at the ones I have been to. I feel that both African American men and women are incredibly underrepresented in a positive and empowering light in many exhibitions. And I hope that this changes in the future and very soon." Participants had an overwhelmingly positive response to the exhibition. They used words such as powerful, meaningful, empowering, and amazement to describe their feelings toward the Black fashion exhibition. For example, one participant shared, "Women of color are never represented in media, and on predominantly white campuses, their ideas are usually brushed off to the side. To have a space where we can share our stories and feel powerful in our identities is very meaningful." The 4 Black women participants in the survey connected with and related to every single theme within the exhibition. In their responses, they related positive connections with the objects and the related stories of the Black women that were highlighted in the exhibition. For example, when describing why she felt connected to the theme self-created expression, one of the participants shared, "Because sometimes we don't find clothing that represents us, Black women, so we make it ourselves." The Black women visitors also shared that they wished the exhibition was larger and showed even more accessories and garments that they could relate to. Some of the visitors made suggestions for exhibition improvements, which mostly centered on resource limitations in the museum or did not consider or acknowledge conservation practices. For example, participants requested brighter lights and a larger gallery space to display more garments and feature more women. Overall, there were many congratulatory comments and a great sense of thankfulness for creating the space on campus for Black women's fashions and styles. Through our research, we highlight the significance of diversity and inclusion in fashion museum exhibitions. Visitors of our exhibition confirmed past research in that museum visitors are supportive of and appreciate the initiative taken by museum professionals to provide equitable representation to combat the silencing of the narratives of historically marginalized communities. It is vital for the well-being of our society and the eradication of white supremacy that fashion curators continue to consider underrepresented communities when creating learning spaces to give a voice to these groups and educate others about their cultures. Thanks to our findings, we advocate for a shift in the fashion museum culture where visitors, those who are privileged and who are not, will experience and learn about how marginalized identities are negotiated through dress while in the museum space. If professionals want to engage with social justice initiatives, the topics of their exhibitions must consider the counter-narratives of marginalized communities, and social justice-informed practices should be considered in all aspects of museum engagement, including the mission statement, accessioning and deaccessioning policies, and considerations when purchasing exhibition materials such as mannequins. And based on our results, we offer implications for fashion museum professionals to consider as they write their missions, manage their collections, and purchase new exhibition materials, as well as planning for exhibition topics. The mission statement is arguably the most important place to start because it will guide all other policies and practices. We encourage fashion museum professionals to be direct in their language usage, and we offer this sample language to consider. It is our goal to use a social justice lens. That is, we plan to ensure that the histories of historically marginalized communities are collected and told in this institutional space. We aim to actively resist and reject all forms of oppression, including white supremacy, ableism, ageism, homophobia, transphobia, fatphobia, xenophobia, and other forms of prejudice and bias in our history-making practices and policies. So that is the end of my presentation, and if anyone has any questions or comments, we'll be happy to talk about those.